Now, Mr. Hughes, his whole campaign is based on education. His campaign is always, it all starts with education.
It is.
Now, you're on the education committee in Jackson, right?
I am.
Now,
Education and universities and colleges.
right. So, how have you helped education since your time in Congress?
Well, a few things. One, I've been a passionate proponent of our school systems. I'm a graduate of the Oxford school system. My children are in it. I think they're the fifth generation to be in public schools in this area for my family. And so I know the sacrifices that our teachers make, and I've been a big advocate for them. I'm not the kind of guy who goes to the podium and pounds on it and we'll see it in the newspaper. A lot of what I do is behind the scenes. It's my personality. And so when I have private conversations with people who are crafting legislation and budgets, if I'm not involved in it, that's what I'm an advocate for. So some of the things we've done is we've passed a teacher pay raise. We've just dramatically increased the teacher supply fund. We've also streamlined the process. When I was elected, we had this Machiavellian system Orwellian system of naming schools. For instance, an average school was called successful.
Right.
A C-rated school was called successful. Well, if a student makes a C, we don't call them successful. We call them a C student. So now we grade schools just like we grade students. And that way parents can look and actually know what they're getting because they're looking going, oh, well, my school's successful. Good job. But if they knew their kid was going to a C school, they might say, hey, let's bump this up. I think we could be a B, right? I think we can be an A, just like they would with their own child.
Right. So a lot of things now, we got the Initiative 42, and a lot of times with the MAEP funding, the law that the legislature passed a few years back.
Yeah.
How come the legislature hasn't been able to fully fund the MAEP?
Well,
get to that
I can't speak to what's happened with it prior to me. In fact, MAEP was passed when I was still in the public school system in Mississippi. But when I got there, there was a dramatic hole. We've increased K-12 spending just shy of $300 million since I was elected. That's dramatic. Now, the MAEP formula, it takes into account a number of factors. For instance, we passed a $100 million teacher pay raise a couple years ago. That automatically raised the MAEP value by $100 million. So we could have said, hey, forget a teacher pay raise. We're just going to put this into the formula to bank the formula and say, hey, we're $100 million closer to funding it. And then everybody would have said, well, we want teacher pay raises. And I felt teacher pay raises are more important than just putting it into that block grant program, having to go to the school boards and having them distribute it. Maybe they would give increased stipends to their teachers, maybe they wouldn't. I couldn't control that. That's their own local decisions. So this was a way to concretely say, this is money that's going to go into the classroom.
So how has education spending been since you've been? Has it increased every year since you've been there?
It has. It's increased every year. It's up just shy of $300 million now. It's really increased in the classroom. When you look at it, I was actually looking at some numbers from the Census Bureau, and if you look at how we spend our dollars in Mississippi, it used to be a much higher percentage of it was in the classroom, and that's been going down. So administrative costs have gone up, in-class expenses have gone down. We've tried to sort of reverse that by pouring that money directly into the teacher pay raise program. That inverts that number a little bit. By putting money into classroom supplies instead of putting it into MAP, because those are separate line items. The classroom supply fund is not part of MAP. It's a whole separate number. We have about $200 million that's appropriated outside of MAEP, and they fund specific programs specifically important to our area, like Chickasaw cessation funds, which makes up for not having 16th section land, the teacher supply fund. We have a program called the National Board Certified Teacher Program, where if you go out and get these national certifications to be a board certified teacher, just like you're board certified in anything else, we'll give you a $6,000 supplement. Well, that's funded outside of MAEP. Oxford and Lafayette County have a disproportionately high number of those teachers. So it's important to them that we fund that program.
So these schools are getting money that's not included in the MAEP.
So yes, without a doubt. Especially places like Oxford, where we get Chickasaw cessation money, which is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I want to say it's around $800,000.
So I think a lot of people are confused about this whole MAEP, what it really is, and what kind of money goes into it. And I didn't even realize there's money outside of it. It's still in education.
There is. It's in K-12 education, no less, not just general education. And that's one thing that a lot of people may not know. Is I was looking at some numbers from the Census Bureau in the last week. They just released some new education spending numbers where they looked at how you spend your money in your school district, what the revenue sources are. Statewide, Mississippi is 20th in what we spend on education relative to what we have. So basically, if they look at GDP, which is the total amount of money in your state, and then what you spend on education, and you put them proportionally, we're 20th. That's not great, that's not number one, but 20th is pretty solid. Now, another thing we also do is the state spending in Mississippi accounts for right at just below 50% of what a school spends. So if a school district is spending their resources, 50% is from the state, and then the other 50% is from local money and federal money and outside money.
Right.
Most states, that number is just about 45%. So we're higher as a percentage of what we give as a state to the school districts relative to other states. Now again, does that fund MAEP? No, that doesn't mean we funded MAEP. But what it also means is we're already giving a larger amount at the state level proportionally than other districts, than other states are.
So Mr. Hughes talked about how a lot of our schools always ranked 49 or 50. Yet you said we're rated 20th as far as funding. How come there's such a disparity there?
Well, the disparity, what I was talking about was funding is a percentage of GDP. So basically,
so
he's using total numbers,
just aggregate numbers.
Aggregate numbers.
Okay.
And I'm looking at apples to apples, sort of what we have, what are we spending out of what we have?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what looking at as a percentage of GDP does. Now, there can be an argument made, and I wouldn't disagree, that we should spend more than the average state as a percentage of our GDP for two reasons. One, because we have more lower income individuals. Two, because our GDP is a little smaller than other areas. So we should be higher, but if average is 25th, then we're already at 20th, so we're above average there. I'd like to see us continue to go upward.
Okay. So where do you stand on the Initiative 42?
I will not be voting for Initiative 42.
So are you more in favor of the 42 alternative, the 42A?
Well, I do like 42A, that it focuses on effective.
Right. And here's my worry with 42 is that it seems that with Initiative 42, it gives a lot more power to the judiciary, the Chancery Court, than should be allowed.
That, it goes contra to a bedrock principle of American government, which is that the power of the purse rests with the legislature. Execution of legislative mandates are executed by the executive branch. The other check is the judicial branch. The judicial branch already has a check on us. This gives them a checkmate. And what's especially scary about it is it's a judicial branch, not only that, but it's a judicial branch that's elected by one county.
Right.
So 1/82nd of the state would have voice in electing a person who could decide all of that. And frankly, I would expect them to listen to their electorate. And their electorate may have different concerns than what would benefit the rest of the state or what would benefit my area. And so, that's why legislatures have the power of the purse. It's because they're a representation of the entire state. They get together, they make decisions. If folks don't like their decisions, they can throw the legislature out.